Morning light on the hardwood floor, coffee steam in the quiet. I'm still half asleep, half afraid of all the ways I'm not enough. I'm drifting on your mercy, arms open like the sky. I fall, but you still hold me. Every doubt, you breathe it dry. I'm drifting on your mercy, carried where I can't see. In the spaces, in the silence, you are singing over me. Bills stacked up on the kitchen chair, voicemails I keep erasing. My plans feel paper thin again, but your peace moves through the room. I'm drifting on your mercy, arms open like the sky. I fall, but you still hold me.
Hello there. Today I am here to talk to you about some questions that I have wrestled with in the past. My name is Christiane. Have you ever heard of characters like Abraham and Moses, or stories like the Exodus with the splitting of the Red Sea? Have you ever heard of characters like Samson and Solomon, or yet Jesus, Yeshua, as his own people used to call him? Have you ever wondered why the Bible is still the most published books of all time? Have you ever wondered how come there are governments framed by the Bible and still people live by it? How come there's still people to this day literally dying for having a Bible on their hands? But first things first, the Bible is not a book. The Bible is a library composed of 66 books written throughout a span of time of 5,000 years with 44 different authors from diverse cultures, backgrounds, and languages. One thing that those authors have in common is that they do not contradict themselves at any time about the character of God. Those authors expose their lives and sorted the mistakes that they did with one aim: to teach people like you and I. I want to share with you the things that I have learned. 15 years ago, I took the challenge of learning about those characters and learning about the Bible. But I couldn't understand it. But I was determined to learn. And I am excited to help you learn and read the Bible for yourself too. First of all, let's talk about the different kinds of writing styles there is in the Bible. Because according to different writing styles, we're going to read in different ways. Well, so the Bible is divided into 5 different writing styles: narrative, poetry, prophecy, epistles or letters, and apocalyptic. We're going to start with a narrative first. Why? Because the first book of the Bible, Genesis, is an ancient Hebrew narrative. And it is so, it's important for us to understand a couple things about it. An ancient Hebrew narrative. It is a narrative that will talk about only the people, the characters that are present on that story. Not everybody that was there, but only the ones that the story is about. Another thing that's very important to understand is that an ancient Hebrew narrative style of writing is a style that narrates, but it doesn't condone behaviors of the authors and of the people that is being talked about it. Another thing that is important to know, the books of poetry. And the books of poetry are very lovely, as you probably can imagine. Who doesn't like poetry? And books such as the Psalms, the Proverbs, books such as the Song of Solomon gives a frame to matters of the heart. And most important, it gives us an idea of the heart of God towards you. Another book, the style of writing, is different books of prophecy. And the books of prophecy have a mathematical background in it. The prophecies are written in such a way that they are either for the time that they were written or the recent future for the Israelites, for the church age, which is the ages, the times after Christ has born, or for the end of times. Now, the very interesting thing about it is that sometimes a prophecy that it has a time frame and archaeological evidences that no one can argue with works not only for the time of the Israelites, but also for the time of the church age and for the end of times, all in one prophecy. Books that are prophetic is such as the book of Isaiah or some of the small prophets, because their books are small. That's why they're called small prophets, like Habakkuk or Malachi. Then we study the books that are about letters, epistles, as a fancy name for letters, all written in the New Testament after Christ has born, most of them written by Paul to different churches that he planted in the world, in the Asian world at that time, to the Romans, churches in Greece, churches in Turkey, and churches in different parts of the Middle East. Those letters were written to encourage them, to teach them, and to correct them. Then we have the final style of writing, that's the apocalyptic writing. There is only one book, Revelation. And it's named Revelation because it is the revelation of Christ to his church, which is everybody that believes in Jesus. It is not meant to be a book that's exotic and a book that is so complicated that we don't touch it, but it's meant to be understood. And it's a book that talks about the victory of Christ over evil. It talks about a new heaven and a new earth. So with that, let's start from the beginning, from Genesis. Genesis means literally beginning, orange, and in Hebrew means Bereshit. So it's a book of beginning, a beginning of relationship between God and his creation, between God and humans, but also between the relationship between one human and another human. Aren't those things that we're worried about? Genesis is a book that will answer questions like, where do we come from? Where are we going? Why they're suffering? And you might have to answer those questions one day. And you might wonder about those questions yourself. A.M. Morse have told in the book Genesis Record that if the person have no problem with Genesis 1:1, which is the first verse of the first book, they probably would not doubt about anything else in the Bible. This is how powerful this book is. Therefore, we're going to start with the first verse on the first book, Genesis 1:1. And bear with me because we're going to read the first verse in Hebrew. And the reason why I wanted to do that, even though I'm not a Hebrew speaker, and you're going to have to excuse me from my pronunciation, is the fact that I want to honor God and the Hebrew people that took great time and work to record this. Most authors will agree that who put this story to the paper was Moses. But you will see on this verse alone that it's not possible that Moses took this from his own hand. Because as we study the first word of the first verse, you're going to see the entire gospel packed in this word. So bear with me. So the first letter, as you can see here, is bet. And bet is also very close to the word beit, which means house or tent or dwelling. The second letter in here is resh. And resh means beginning or chief or head. Then, if you put the second letter with the third letter together, it means ruha, which is spirit. The spirit. Yes, you heard me right. The spirit of God. Then the fourth letter is shin. Shin often symbolizes one of the names of the Lord, El Shaddai, which means the fiery, purifying nature of God's presence. The fifth letter, which looks like a comma or an apostrophe, is Yod. And Yod, which is the smallest letter of the Hebrew alphabet, means handwork, the divine spark. And finally, the last letter is Tav, which is also the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet. It's completion, it's covenant, it's fulfillment. So we can read like this. Through the Son, Resh and Aleph, of God, the head, a house, Bet, was built through divine fire, Shin, and the handwork, Yod, of God, bringing forth the completion of the covenant, Tav. It's not possible that a human being would write with so much intention. The second word in this verse is bara. And bara means created from nothing. I can create a cake, but I have to start from certain things, from flour and water and ingredients. If I create a tool to fix my car, for example, you're probably not going to hear the end of it because I don't have a lot of mechanical skills and I would be very proud of it. But still, I would have to do something, 3D print or use some metal and forge that. But here, the creation is spoken, it's out of nothing. And if that was not enough, the third word in this first verse is Elohim. El means God, single God. Him means plural. Is a plural single God, a three in one God, the Trinity. Elohim. At is the next word. And at is a very interesting word because it starts with the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, Aleph, and it ends with the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet, Tav. So from Alpha to Omega, from Aleph to Tav, from the beginning to the end, it's completion. Then comes the word Hashamayim, which means firmament, the heavens. And that, again, the concept of at is still present there from the beginning to the ending. God created the heaven and the earth. There is a sense of completion, and there is the story of the gospel, the entire gospel, in this verse of Genesis 1:1. So I truly hope that, like Henry Morris has mentioned, that you will believe in that too. Then we study verse 2. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep. And the Spirit of God, which you already learned, it's Ruha in Hebrew, was hovering over the waters. I will use the Bible to interpret the Bible. So in the middle of the Bible, the Psalms on chapter 19, verse 1 tells us, the heavens declares the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his handwork. And closer to the end of the Bible, the New Testament, Paul writes to the church in Rome, in Romans chapter 1, verse 20. For since the world's creation, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been seen, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse. He is the ultimate reality. God, the eternal and omnipresent, exists outside the time and space. And that's a very comforting truth. It is comforting for me, and I hope it is comforting for you as well. He has a constant presence. So if a person is skeptical about God of Genesis, one can always go outside and look at the skies because it confirms his presence. It is possible that the waters that they're referring here in verse 2 is dark matter and matter. It is possible, but we do not know for sure. And what is interesting about is that neither matter or dark matter can be created or transformed or destroyed. It can only be transformed because God himself is outside matter. So therefore, he is immutable, meaning he doesn't change. This is also a very comforting truth to me because even though you have people in your life that might have changed their perspective, the culture has changed, things that you thought about people and things that you took for given has changed. He doesn't change because he is outside matter. Science has been teaching that things have come together random. But I'm here as a scientist to tell you that even science itself contradicts itself. The cell theory tells us that every cell is made of a pre-existing cell. Therefore, there has to be a previous cell to give rise to a new cell. There was never proven that throwing a bunch of random things together would give any living organism. In fact, I can put pieces of a car in my backyard and live there for millions of years. And no one would expect that I would come back there and find a very nice sports car. Now we're going to tackle verse 2 to 5. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. See, God created light from nothing. God brought light. According to astrophysics, the speed at which the universe was created in the beginning was a neck breaking speed. Therefore, we cannot use the physical principles we know now to apply to that time. It doesn't apply. He is more significant than his creation. The same way a designer is more significant than the design. Another thing important to break down on this particular verse is that light is both a particle and a wave. As a particle, it is matter. As a wave, it enables us to measure time. You probably have heard of measuring the distance from one star to the next in light years, because it means how long it took the light from that star to reach to us. The same thing happens in here. God, in one movement, when He creates light, He creates matter and He creates time. In verse 4, God is confident. He says, God saw that the light was good, and He separated the light from darkness. So He's affirming He has no need to explain Himself. He has no need to create a situation where He is convincing us because He's self sufficient. God called, in verse 5, the light day, and the darkness He called night. And there was evening and there was morning, the first day. This word day here is yom, which means 24 hours in Hebrew. And He even frames between day and night. There are another words that means ages, eternity. But that word used in other parts of the Hebrew text is iolan, not yom. And they're used in different contexts. Now, if you come in terms with that the God of the universe could create things in 24 hours, you will believe in a very powerful God. But if you are not willing to accept that the God of the universe that created the stars, it created cells and atoms, is capable of creating things in 24 hours, then he is not much of a God, is he? Then we come to day 2, the creation of the earth and the skies. And verse 6 tells us, and God said, He created out of nothing, let there be a vault between the waters to separate water from the waters. Again, could it be dark matter from matter? We do not know. Possible. So God made the vault and separated the water under the vault from the water above it. And it was so. God called. Here, when God calls something, He defines. The name defines the vault sky, and there was evening, and there was morning, the second eon, the second 24 hours period. There was a blank of vapor on the vault, on the sky, and that's an important information. And again, we're going to use the Bible to interpret the Bible. In Genesis chapter 7, verse 11, it tells us, in the 600th year of Noah's life, on the 7th day of the second month, on that day, all the springs of the great deep burst forth, and the floodgates of the heavens were opened. The vault enabled to the water to descend. Now, how about the springs of the deep? Well, in 2014, there was a discovery. A team of researchers, including Steve Jacobson and Brandon Schement from the University of New Mexico, found evidence of a large reservoir of water deep within the Earth's mantle. This water is stored in mineral called ringwoodite, which is found in the transition zone of the mantle, about 400 to 600 kilometers beneath the Earth's surface. As you can see, there was water that came from the deeps too. With water that's bigger than the oceans, collected oceans, and the water in the vapor canopy. Day 3, creation of life. Verse 9, and God said, meaning God created, let the waters under the sky gather to one place, and the dry ground appear. And it was so. God called, he defined the dry ground land, and gathered the waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. He affirmed that it was good. Then God said, let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants and trees on the land that bear fruit with seed in it, according to their various kinds. And it was so. The land produced vegetation, plants bearing seed according to the kinds, and trees bearing fruit and seeded according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. Now, here you might say, well, how come? Nothing developed? No. The plants or adult plants with seed in it, with fruits in it. God is preparing an environment with food that the animals can eat and the humans can eat. Evolutionary theory has reached a point that physics has reached on the 1800s. You see, Isaac Newton came up with a Newtonian physics for large objects. It is stipulated in 3 different laws that works very well, up to now, of course, to large objects. However, in the time of Maxwell, this Scottish physicist, he started studying light, and he started studying particles of lights, photons, and atomic theory. And those laws of physics that Isaac Newton had found could no longer apply to this very microscopic world. Same thing happens with evolutionary theory. Some of the laws that we taught, or some of the theory, because it's not even law, some of the theory that we taught that's applicable for large animals, that theory does not hold when we come to microbe evolution. You see, bacteria are very tiny organisms, and some of them have the ability to transfer DNA to each other. They also have the ability to pick up DNA from the environment. They also can receive DNA from a virus and incorporate that into their own genome. The thing is, the lifespan of a bacteria is very short, 20, 45 minutes. So when I used to inoculate cultures of bacteria at night, in the morning after 18 hours, 16 hours, I had many, many, many generations of bacteria. In a month, I had what was equivalent to millions of years. That does not change the fact that bacteria does not change species. Yes, they will do minor changes on their DNA. They will acquire genes for antibiotic resistance, for example, but they will not switch from an E. coli to a Bacillus ceres, for example, that causes the fried rice disease, or from the bacteria E. coli to a bacteria that causes syphilis. That does not happen. Not even similar species are able to cross between them. They stay as one species because it would not be viable. If the change is too drastic, even what is equivalent of millions of years, that bacteria is not able to reproduce. So it defies the purpose of life according to biology, which is to leave as many offsprings behind as possible. In day 4, there is the creation of stars. And God said, created out of nothing, let there be light in the vault of the sky to separate it the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark sacred times and days and years. He told us the why he created them. And let them be lights in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth. And it was so. God made 2 great lights, the greater light to govern the day, and the lesser light to govern the night. He also made the stars, and God set them in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth, to govern the day and the night, and to separate light from darkness. And he affirmed, he saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the 4th 24-hour period, the 4th yom. One can go ahead and say, well, but he made plants first. How do those plants are going to survive without sunlight? You would only say that if you do not understand photosynthesis completely. And photosynthesis is composed with 2 cycles. A light cycle, yes, that it needs light. And is composed by a dark cycle called the Calvin cycle, where the carbons are going to be receiving the electrons and being fixated to make energy for the plants. Well, those plants are grown plants, so they have energy already because God provided the energy and the light from himself. And you would only have a problem with that if you didn't think that yom, day, means 24 hours. But a plant can survive in the dark for 24 hours. I challenge you to put a plant in the dark for 24 hours and check on the next day to see if the plant is not just fine. God's position of the earth at the perfect distance from the sun and the moon was so important. A little closer, it would burn. A little farther, it would be so cold that life would be impossible. Also, the tides and the moon and the gravitational waves that regulates the seasons are all interconnected with the perfect position of the earth. We worship a personal God who placed you and I on the right time, on the right family. And right now, don't you think that you're watching this video just randomly? God has appointed you for times such as this, as he tells Esther, the queen, in a story further in the Bible. Day 5. This is the last day we're going to go over in this video. God created the oceans, and God said, let the waters teem with live creatures. Let the birds fly above the earth, across the vault of the sky. So God created the greater creatures of the sea and every living thing with which the water teems and that moves about in it, according to their kinds. Again, species does not cross species. There is no record of missing links in evolution. And every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. God blessed. And here's the first time he blesses. How does he bless? He blessed them and said, be fruitful and increase in numbers, and fill the water in the seas and let the birds increase on the earth. You can see in here that God thinks is a blessing to be fruitful and to multiply. God blessed them and said, "Be fruitful and increase in numbers and fill the water in the seas and let the birds increase on the earth." And there was evening and there was morning, the fifth day. I pray that you felt encouraged. You felt seen and loved by a God that prepared everything before he put human beings on earth. A God that up to now has not created death, and you're going to see he doesn't create death. I hope you felt encouraged by a God that's omnipresent, that's everywhere and outside space and time, and that he sees you. And he placed you at this time and this hour watching this video to give you hope and to show you that he has plans for you, for hope and a future, not plans for disaster. Remember that underneath you, the Bible says, there is the everlasting arms. You are seen, you are heard. You have a blessed day.
But your peace moves through the room. I'm drifting on your mercy, arms open like the sky. I fall, but you still hold me. Ah.